In this video, we're going to look at Bayes' rule and really just the basics of Bayes' rule and what it means. So we know just the formula, but I'm not interested in the formula. I'll just go ahead and write that so we have it. But the formula, if you just look at it for what it is, kind of gets kind of confusing. So we know the formula is intersection of A and B over probability of B, given that we have this probability right here. And again, if we extend that using our multiplication rule, we have probability of B given A times the probability of A. This is just the multiplication rule. And now we have, again, still probability of B right here. I'll talk about each of those parts in a little bit. So again, don't get too caught up with the meaning of this formula right here. Let's take a look at just basic probability, the basic idea of probability. So we know probability of some event A happening, just some random event, we know is the total number of outcomes, I should say desired outcomes, over the number of total outcomes. So it's like heads over heads and tails. That would be 1 over 2. That's just the basic probability idea right there. But we have conditional probability. Conditional probability is a little bit different because the event we're looking at, it depends on whatever happened before it. So in the case of Bayes' rule, we have some event B that's already happened and it affects event A somehow. And we have to look at that somehow and see what we can do with that information. So let's take a look at that depending on, or note with the fact that we know this right here as well. Okay. So if we write this equation, this formula again, probability of A given B. Let's write that again. Well, if we can, if you want to think about this, I guess I should write this part first. The intersection, right there. We write that intersection. That is the part. And let me draw a little diagram. It won't be perfect, but let me draw a little diagram. We have our entire, let's call this the universal set, and some part that's going to be our B. Okay, that's our B right there. When we look at A, there's some intersection there. We look at A. If B has already happened, we already know B has happened, and there's some probability that B has happened right there. We want to find, well, that's really all we're interested in. We don't care about anything outside of this red circle right here. We don't care about that because we know B has already happened. And really, we want to know that the intersection of A and B. So it's got to have some B in it. Okay, in this case, we're looking at the intersection, which is going to be right there. That's the part. And so if I want to kind of zoom in on this, we have that right there and the intersection right there. That's what we're focused on. That part is what we are focused on. So if we see we have a part over a whole, the part right here over the whole right here is the whole thing. And we see we have part over whole. Really, that's all probability is. So that is what, that's where Bayes' theorem comes from. As long as you know part over whole, we should be good. And that is pretty much where Bayes' theorem comes from. In the next few examples, we're going to take a look at that through an actual example, and we'll talk about that.